All right. Hello and welcome to the March Alexander Board meeting. Can we have roll, please?
Mr. Ramsey? Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Yedis? Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
And Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. For the adoption of the agenda and addendum, we have two changes. We have the special presentation will not be done by Nate Schaller, but instead Jay Barnes. Under item B of superintendent's recommendations, we are going to table Sarah Bush, and Megan McGilligan will stay there. And that will be it. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Yedis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Public participation on agenda items. This is your chance to speak on any item on the agenda. All right. Special presentations, we have Jay Barnes with the track update.
Okay, Nate was supposed to give us an update this evening, but unfortunately, at the last minute, he had a scheduling conflict. So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of what he has said, but I can't remember the date. It's a couple weeks ago, I attended a meeting that Nate and the athletic director, along with Mr. Sherm, Ms. Douglas, we had a meeting with the architect on the track. Just looked at the proposals that they had come up with, kind of went over what they would like to see, some price estimates. Nothing concrete yet, and I'm not going to share any of the costs yet because, as we all know, inflation and things are going crazy with cost, and what we get today will not be what it'll be tomorrow or next month. The public notices have gone out to the local newspapers for bidding. Bid packages can be requested from Craig Sportsworks and Designs. And Ms. Douglas, do you remember the exact date of when the bids are due? It's before our next board meeting, so we will have had time to look at the proposals that come back.
They are due the week before the board meeting. They will all be turned into Mr. Sherm, the treasurer, and then we can present the bids during the April board meeting.
Just for disclosure, the biggest issue that we all are aware of with the existing track is the surface. It is not usable, but due to some testing and things like that, the engineers have decided that the whole track and the subsurface is substandard. So if we try to do a surface patch, we're just putting a Band-Aid on an infected wound that's never going to heal. So one of the reasons that this was partially delayed is the architects presented 3 options for what type of surface we would go with. That is still, I think, being debated by Nate and the athletic director and others. But there's going to be 3 choices, and of course, every choice has an associated cost, which we should know more next month. But that's the update for now. It's progressing along as far as bidding, and it's not guaranteed yet, but at least it will come at least next month before the board to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. On the consent agenda, anything need to be removed? Then do we have a motion? I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Under Treasurer's recommendations, item A, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the enclosed revised annual appropriations for the fiscal year of 2022 and certify to the county auditor.
Seconded.
Discussion. Aaron, you want to give just a quick?
Yeah, this is just routine the amendment to the appropriations. It's normal for you to have to amend your appropriations throughout the year as things change. Your federal allocations change throughout the year. We've gotten a couple other local grants, so we have to appropriate those funds so that we can legally expend them. So that's all this is.
Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Under Superintendent's recommendations, item A, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the enclosed request for early graduation from Jonathan Thorpe Morris, pending his meeting all requirements.
Seconded.
Discussion. Just want to say congratulations and well done. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Under item B, it's recommended that the Board of Education employ the following for the 2021-22 school year, pending their meeting all state and local requirements. It's Megan McGilligan, home instructor tutor, at $22 per hour.
Moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Under item C, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the Student Growth Measures Committee of up to 6 teachers to meet on an as-needed basis with a pay rate of $22 per hour for the 2021-22 school year and the 2022-23 school year. This is a new requirement for the OTES process through the Ohio Department of Education.
Moved.
Seconded.
Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Item D, it's recommended the Board of Education accept the enclosed letter of resignation from Christy Augustino, Assistant Varsity Softball Coach.
I move it.
Second. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Under item E, it's recommended the Board of Education employ Josh Mace, Assistant Varsity Softball Coach for the 2021-22 school year, pending his meeting all state and local requirements.
Seconded.
Discussion. Just wanted to say thank you for stepping up on short notice. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Item F, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding with OAPSE regarding the COVID bonus. So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion. And just for clarification, this is for 2 employees that were hired late in the school year that had been subbing prior to that, correct?
Correct. These are 2 employees that have been subbing in our district. We had some retirements come due in December, and these 2 employees will replace those retirements.
Roll.
Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes, Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Item G, is recommended that the Board of Education approve the enclosed service provider agreement with Ohio University Penn College of Education for the 2022-23 school year. Second. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey, Mrs. Udis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes, Mr. Collins.
Yes.
We have the first reading of the policies to be included in our policy manual. Does anybody have a need to bring it to the floor for discussion? Nope. Okay, then we have our addendum. It is recommended that the Board of Education authorize the payment of one-time COVID-19 bonus of $1,500 to the following long-term substitute teachers. We have Morgan Grinson, Amanda Howry, James Stamper, and James Weaver.
Seconded.
Discussion. And let me again, these are long-term substitutes that were with us last year and this year to help through.
These 4 employees worked with us all last year during COVID. They came back and returned as long-term subs this year for Alexander Local Schools. Through conversations, discussing the agenda with Josh Collins last night, we wanted to make sure we were treating everybody fair and equitable. So I went back into the office early this morning to comb through and make sure that we offered this to every employee. Through doing that with the payroll department, we found that these 4 were never honored that part. So we've added it to the addendum tonight, and we probably don't even know what it is. So we're good.
Other discussion? Roll.
Mr. Ramsey, Mrs. Udis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes, Mr. Collins.
Yes.
We have business initiated by board members.
I'll second for discussion.
It's on the floor for discussion. My understanding from talking with legal counsel is that we cannot offer a renewal at this time. So we have a 3 resignation in that transition period. So we cannot offer a renewal at this time. And that's different than the
Blake, can you tell us when that conversation took place roughly? Because I don't know, I wasn't part of the discussion, so if you could give us some more information or
It was,
enter executive session so we could call legal counsel just to hear what they have to say.
it was around February 10th or 11th. It was around February 10th or 11th.
I asked that question and I was told no.
No, you were told that question was never asked of legal counsel, as I never asked. And so, if that's a question you would like to ask legal counsel, I instructed you to contact legal counsel. And we're welcome to do that, but it wouldn't be in this arena.
No, it would be an executive session.
Correct.
Right.
We would have to do a motion for executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official for or the investigation of charges or complaints against an employee or official. That's what our motion would be, to go into executive session. So we would table, so we would have to table this motion, and then we can discuss that. Because I don't know if legal counsel is available, because this is the first I'm hearing of the motion. Well, that's what I'm saying. We have a motion on, so I'll make a motion to table your motion so we can get to the executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second to table it as long as we're going to attempt to call legal in executive session, yes.
I have no response. Further discussion?
So now we could go into executive session.
No, we have to continue the agenda, but it would fit into the executive session that's already there, and we would have to see if legal counsel is available.
It's next on the agenda.
We would come back from executive session, and we could make action, we could not make action, it depends on what information we have from legal counsel. We cannot make action in executive session. No, no, we don't know if we can vote. There's a table, we have no idea what the legal grounds are. I didn't bring it up. Thank you. We'll get to it in public. We'll get it to public participation. You're welcome to. We will get to it when we get to public participation. We'll get there. Discussions with the board. Is there any other discussions? No. The agenda we are on board initiated business. Public participation is before the executive session. So we're going to finish through the agenda as you got it. That's the agenda. As part of the agenda, yes. So, is there any other discussions on the tabling? We'll get there. Is there any other discussion? We'll have order. Thank you. Trying to be respectful. We will get to it in public participation. Is there any other discussion items? Can I have roll for the table of Mr. Ramsey's motion?
This is for to
This
table.
is To table.
Yep. Mr. Ramsey? Mrs. Udis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes? Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Board reports. Public participation on non-agenda items. This is your time to talk. Please step up to the mic and state your name.
I'm Shane Jarrett. I typically don't do this. I'm a father of a second grader and a kindergartner in the school. I live outside the district. Superintendent Douglas represents the stability and firm foundation our children need to recover from the learning deficits caused by COVID closure. These deficits have been felt nationwide and are not unique to our community, but especially impact rural communities like Alexander. If she were to be replaced, we would not only be piling on additional disruption. I'm sorry, I'm just going to get emotional. I'm not going to read through this. You've read it. I know you've seen it. This is a petition. It has almost 1,000 signatures. 1,000 signatures of folks that are in these chairs, that represent your community. They represent the kids you teach. They represent the children and the parents. You guys are making a big mistake. We don't need this disruption. We don't need this unnecessary spending. I would say the majority of you that are sitting here, you ran on a platform of financial responsibility, and you're taking a financially irresponsible route. I would hope that you would reconsider your decision. There are other petitions going around. This one's still going around. Again, it represents 1,000 people. You get a couple thousand more, that's at least half of the people that even voted for you to begin with. You should really reconsider. A couple of comments on this thing. One major donor to the ARC said he wouldn't have even donated had it not been for Lindy. How many people were the deciding factor for the levy? I voted for the levy because I lived in district at the time. It was one vote. I've talked to dozens of people that have signed this petition, good decision or bad, that have said that they're not going to vote for the next levy. You are putting the final nail in the coffin. And you're going to end up putting the nail in the coffin of your career as a board member. And the next board is going to be responsible for having to cut because they're not going to have a levy and they're not going to have the money. I would suggest you reconsider, and I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Lachman, and my son goes here. And I guess I am kind of confused by the last board meeting. There was a lot of questions asked of the board members that did vote against Ms. Douglas as far as why. And there was no answers given to that. And it was just said, you can do a public records request. I did that public records request. There's still no answers in that. So there is nothing in there. There is no comments from any board member except for Mr. Collins. And I would consider the comments that were there very petty and not worth firing our superintendent that has been here for many years. And all of that was, again, followed with Ms. Douglas, her rebuttal to those, and she has addressed those concerns that Mr. Collins had put forth. So I still don't understand why you would vote against renewing her contract when she addressed the only 3 concerns. And I think that you at least, tell me public parent complaints, because I don't know of any. I don't expect names, but I need to understand what she has done so poorly. I'm in human resources. You don't just fire somebody typically just because. There's a reason behind it. And without a good reason, I don't know why you would put our kids through this. And in my opinion, like in reading the only comments that were provided to me through that public records request, it is personal. Those were very petty things that were mentioned in that. And like I said, she addressed that. So if there were other concerns from Ms. Douglas that we as the public aren't aware of, I'm sure she would have given a rebuttal and addressed those as well. But you have to give an opportunity for someone to fix something. And if you don't let her know the issues you have with her and give her that opportunity, that is just unfair. And no matter who you get in this position, no one will ever make everyone happy. It's not possible. There's too many different opinions, and that's fine. That's what makes it everybody good. But you have to look at the overall good that a person does and make a decision based on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to just, was it Susan? Susan? I just would like to remind you that we were given legal advice not to talk about that, talk about those things. And so that's why we sit quietly, okay? Just so you're more than aware of that, that's why our legal counsel told us not to. And so the only person, Susan, the only person that is legally, whatever you want to say, not, who can release that information is, there's one person up here. But I wouldn't put that pressure on her to do it. And so that's why we're sitting quietly.
You care so much. Thank you for caring.
Lindy is the one person that can talk about her employment in public without legal recourse.
And I would like to,
And so that is why we will not do it.
and I would like to share that I've been on the board 2 years. Each year, I added comments, written comments to Lindy about what I thought she did well and what I thought needed improvement. She has those comments. They were given to her. She did not ask me for any clarification about anything that I wrote. So she has received comments and input from us, both written in the official evaluation, as well as in emails, can we get this, what about this, what about that? And we're not a board of, we're a board of 5 people. So when we speak as a board, especially when there are differences, there's little that we can agree on. What you were talking about, those points, were the 3 things that we agreed on when Jay was president. It wasn't Josh, it was Jay. Approached her with and said, these 3 things we'd like to know more about. They were very specific instances. They weren't like big picture things. The big picture things would have been in the same evaluation form that we used, and it was used before I was on the board, I believe, about ranking things in terms of this and that and that, and this is the standard form. It's probably way outdated. When I started here, I was kind of curious about how you can evaluate someone who makes the top salary at the school using such a strange, fairly useless form, but it's consistently the same form that I believe has been used throughout. No. So in terms of us giving her thoughts about what was working and what we thought needed to be better, we've done it in writing individually as part of the process. And when we have and we've had official meetings with her when the president would say, by the way, this is where you need to work on. Jay did it, Blake did it as president. And when we meet with her individually or emails, I'll be like, I need this report, or can I get this, or can I get that? There has been input given, an assessment done. She never asked me for any clarification about anything that I wrote. Wait, one at a time, please. What? Obviously not, or I would have approved it. I don't like sitting here like this. You can, and I also want to point, so there's evaluations, and there was also, that's it. Okay, next. Yeah, yeah. The evaluation, the composite, I think it has to do with the fact that we work as a board, not as individuals. And I know in the past there was, like the president, and it's been different in the past. It's been haphazard. But when I started, I was told by Jay and then by Blake that you do the composite numbers, and if you want to give your individual write-ups, those are given to the superintendent as input, and that's it. There was no composite write-up or anything like that. There were just general discussions about work on this, work on that, and the president had those meetings with her.
So if,
Does that, I think it's the difference between having one boss who is hired and having 5 bosses who are elected, and it's a public thing versus private, I believe.
so I'd like to interject, just for clarity. And I think, Luke, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but at no, and I stated this, and it's in the meeting minutes that we approved last meeting. We as a board, as a 5-member collective board, never had a meeting to come together and give Mrs. Douglas goals or things to work on for next year, deficiencies. We all 5, in my case, and probably Mr. Davis's, we might have criticized her on a couple issues, but we also gave her plenty of praise on others. But I said it before, you cannot serve 5 masters. And when we all talk about that we've given her individual comments, we have. But my individual comments is probably in direct contrast to some other board member. So she can't please me and please somebody else just ripping her up and down. So I will state it again. We as a board never came together and deliberated, discussed, this is what we want to see going forward. That never happened. Thank you.
I would,
And
Jay,
Jay is correct. We never met as a board with Lindy and set out those goals. What we chose to do as a group of 5 was to go through those reviews and have the president meet with Lindy to discuss the composite reviews and the overall direction of the board. So he's correct. We did not meet as a group of 5 to discuss those goals specifically. We made a choice as a group of 5 for the president to speak with Lindy after the reviews were done.
I have a couple I could share. From Blake Regan. Remember, we are trying to piss people off.
Who was that
LOL.
to?
This is from you.
Who was that to? That wasn't,
That's from you.
no, 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 no,
It's
no,
from
no,
you.
no, 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 no. No, that's not from Blake. Try it
this
again.
is- oh, then who's it from?
That's from Jay Barnes to Blake.
Yeah.
No, it is.
Well, I've got your name on
That's
this.
from Jay
okay?
Barnes
I've
to
got your
Blake.
name on this. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. We have a lot of them, okay? So my name is Brad Jeffers, by the way. I was administrator here for a while. Lucy, you talked about your evaluations. The one thing you didn't talk about is performance. Do you realize our school has outperformed every other school in the school district, or in Athens County? That
Yes.
didn't matter to you.
okay, keep talking.
I asked you a question. Do you realize our school has outperformed all the other schools in our county?
It has not.
It has. Which ones have outperformed us?
The K through 3, the preschool,
Our school,
There-
Alexander.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you're saying our K through 3 hasn't outperformed as a school? K through 12 is who we are here. Have we outperformed the other ones?
I will say that on the Ohio Department of Education, they have lots of statistics. Some of them are good, especially the value added for the last 3 years. That is very good for Alexander. Others are not. The pre-K through 3 has not been very good, and it's going down. Can you,
It's true, though. I mean, our school is recognized nationally,
I'm not done.
right?
Do you
Well,
want
neither
me?
am I. We got something in common, I guess, the first thing, because I actually respect our farmers, because guess what? They pay taxes, they support our school.
Are you talking about the education statistics, or are you talking about farmers? Which one?
Well, our school has outperformed everyone. We all know that.
Not
It's very
in everything.
obvious.
It's good,
Not
but
in
it's-
every single category, no, nor has anyone. But as a whole, we've outperformed all the other ones. But that isn't important to you, because your personal evaluation recommendation is more important than our kids, which is really sad when we look at your credentials and your performance as a substitute teacher at Alexander, which was miserable.
Brad, that, if you want to talk about that, that is about a reform employee. That would be executive session. You don't do stuff like that.
No, I don't.
Well,
Okay,
you're
I
not
need take
supposed
advice
to.
from you. You're right up there when it comes to character, ethics, high standards. So, yeah, I
Ray,
am. You're
it's
right.
okay.
I'm getting quite personal, and you can come up and talk in just a minute,
Ray, it's okay.
Well, so
Brad,
when
what
you're ready to
else?
get personal, that's fine. But
Brad.
it is very personal.
Brad.
It's very personal.
Brad.
David,
What
That's
else?
fine.
What
Okay,
else?
so a couple other things. Blake, I think you ran on nepotism and transparency. That was one of your big things. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Transparency, I believe you're on our health insurance here at the school and have been for some time. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Which is why I abstained from any
Yeah.
of the,
Okay, hold on. July 2021, you abstained on the 3-year LALEA contract. Is that correct?
correct.
Correct. What you're required to do as a board member.
No,
When your wife works here and you're on our
No,
insurance policy,
I'm
you're
not required. Nope.
Okay. October 2020, did you vote on a 1-year ALEA extension?
what's that?
Did you vote on a 1-year ALEA contract extension?
Correct.
In October of 2020?
Correct.
You did?
Yep,
You did not abstain from that one?
correct.
Okay. Even though you are on our insurance and your wife works here at the school?
And I'm not legally required to.
Is that
Correct.
considered nepotism?
No,
It's not.
no.
You wouldn't call that nepotism even though you accused our superintendent of that? You accused our superintendent, many times you accused our superintendent of nepotism, but you're voting on your wife's contract, that's not nepotism. You're voting on something that financially enhances you, that's not nepotism. In your
Carry
eyes?
on.
Okay. You also voted on a contract for remote learning where your wife gets $1,300. Was that considered nepotism in your mind?
No.
That's not either, okay. I'm trying to find the lines here, right? 'Cause it's pretty cloudy what you consider nepotism and what you don't.
Okay.
When you jumped the line for a vaccine, was that nepotism?
No.
That wasn't either, even though the state standard said very clearly, well, school board members are not eligible.
When did that come out?
When did it come out? Oh,
Yeah.
You want me to read it to you?
Yeah, when did that come out?
Okay, February 2/21.
And when did you have to register?
February 2/21.
When did you have to register for
I'll
the
read it to you.
vaccine?
The program does not include school board members, parent volunteers, or early childhood providers. This is from Lance Himes, the Senior Deputy Director of
Correct.
the Ohio Department of Health.
Correct. And that came out February 2nd?
And you
And-
went ahead and jumped the line when you weren't allowed to get your vaccine, ahead of our community members, some senior high-risk people.
No,
Oh, you didn't?
no.
Oh, okay. So that's about the 70th lie you've told since
Okay.
you've been in this chair.
So there's, again.
That's a blatant lie, Blake. We all know that, okay?
You
What
had
about
to
when the
register.
kids in
If you
your
want to ask a
child's
question,
class-
listen to the answer.
Okay. What-
We had to register for that by January 7th?
Early.
Well, Lindy was the one in charge of the list. That's why I'm asking her.
It was early.
That's why I'm asking her. No, you had
No,
to
no,
register.
it was-
You
it
had
was
to
signing up, that's
register.
It was
In
just
which
registering.
case, you're welcome to go ask for how I got on. Go ahead, get the public records request of how I got on
Yeah, I
the,
think you had to file an apology for that, did you not?
I did not have to
You
file
didn't
an
apo-
apology.
you-
I did not.
You didn't issue an apology to the nurse for that?
Oh, I sure did,
Oh,
because I
okay.
misunderstood her role in it.
Oh, okay.
I issued an apology to her, yes. And what did her,
That's good.
yeah,
Okay, now, what about when your son's class was quarantined, you don't have regular babysitting, so you decided to bring him to class anyway? And
We
had to
gotta be
hire a
very
teacher
careful.
to sit in that class when the rest of the
you've got to be
parents had
very
to
careful
quarantine their
about
classes.
that one.
I'm sorry?
You've got to be very careful about that one,
I'm
and
just
that's
asking
not,
a question. These are facts.
Lindy?
See, public request has enlightened a lot of people. We have a
I'll
lot
let
more
Lindy, because
information than
I'm
you
not
can
going to
have.
defend myself. I'll let
cannot
Lindy
talk about that
decide
right
if she wants to answer that question. Because if I'm doing that, I'm just defending myself. I'll let Lindy answer my role in any of that. Do you have anything you would like to add?
No.
Do you three realize, since you guys have done what you've done, pretty much every significant donor in the entire school system has pulled their funding from us? If you look at everyone that helped donate for the building out there, you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone out of maybe 100 people, because I was actually here working there when we were trying to raise that money. None of them support you guys. They've all said, we will not fund this school anymore, we will not donate anymore, nor will we vote for a levy. Something else you probably don't know, Blake, since you don't know about your kid coming to school when he wasn't allowed to, but I'll go ahead and talk about that. 25, 26, those school years, we're gonna have to cut $2 million out of our budget. Have you three thought about how you're gonna do that? Because you think you have any chance of getting a levy passed with the hostility you've created in our community? None.
Thank you.
Zero. Okay, have you thought about how we're gonna get rid of that $2 million, which teachers we're gonna fire? You thought about that at all? And you're gonna add $400,000 that we don't need for another position? And you expect us not to get personal or upset about that? That's real money that our community needs for our kids. Josh, when you can raise thousands of dollars for your own kids' soccer team's paraphernalia so that your child in 7th grade is outfitted better than any kid in the entire school, but when the boosters ask you to maybe help them write a grant, you don't have time for that. That's your response. I don't have time for that. Is that nepotism?
Do you have a clue what nepotism is?
Kind of is, isn't it?
So,
It's
so
amazing
let's talk
what you criticize Miss Douglas for, but when we open the doors on your lives, you are far more guilty. And you're ruining our school district and our community for your own selfish egos. And it's really sad.
so you're right.
They're the ones you really need to answer to, not me, because I know all about you.
So you're right. When I spoke with Julie Collins shortly after,
Talk louder.
when I talked with Julie about writing a grant for the art, that is correct. I told her that I was too busy at that time. I was in the middle of contract negotiations at work, and I did not have the availability. I did write 2 grants for the soccer program through the Target Soccer Works. And then beyond that, I did come back after my NASA negotiations ended. I did come back and ask, is there anything I can do to help at this point? Don't shake your head no. We spoke at a basketball game, and you said there was nothing to do at that time. So I did come back.
Want me to, are
What?
you going to keep talking? It seemed as if the questions that were asked were very basic and would not be applicable for someone at the CEO level. However, what I was also trying to say is that because we had used them for years before, they were at least consistent, so you can see the change, any change over time.
Okay, so you're wanting a new superintendent. Are they going to be judged by these antiquated? You have a chance to get with your legal counsel and get something that is current,
I would, keep going, sorry.
or are you going to stay with antiquated? Are you going to stay with the old Ford truck, or are you going to get you a new one?
When I started, and Jay, I asked about this, if we needed to use this or if we could go to something that was more current or more applicable for someone at that level of responsibility. And I think we Lee decided, not right now, it's too late, or it's too much time. So with someone, I do think it should be done.
It should be done for
Yeah.
a new one, because if you don't, you're gonna be sticking it to a new person.
But the thing is, it was still a consistent tool, so, and there still is plenty of opportunity. There's, for, if someone knows that they're not doing what their bosses think that they should, the person can always go and say, hey, what can I do better?
I know that, but I'm thinking, right now, you've got a new
One-
superintendent coming in, you should get your butts in gear for a change, get a new one that, with today's people. Because if you don't, you're gonna be judging somebody by something you said doesn't work. Or that it's there because.
It could have been better. Yeah,
I'm
it's,
just
yeah.
saying.
I'd agree.
You've got people mad, but now's the time to come out there and say, hey, we're gonna judge somebody on today's standards, not the 60s, not the 70s.
Well, the
So-
challenge for me was applying what I think of as today's standards through that instrument. And that's why with the first evaluation, I gave 6 pages worth of thoughts on, and in that one, I actually followed the format of the headings and subheadings and explained what I thought about each one. She did not approach me to ask me what I thought or why I said this or why I said that. No, I know. So I just wanted to explain that it is possible to use that to have a conversation about what could be different. So,
You're telling me you probably won't have a new,
Fran,
probably won't do a new.
Fran, just
We'll
to
figure that out.
clarify, Mr. Hutchison, so we're going back a little ways. He asked me, he goes, Jay, I would like you to, because I criticized our evaluation system. It is antiquated. I'll go on record and it's antiquated. My running joke is, and maybe it's a valid question, but to me, it's a joke that I use. But we judge the superintendent on their sense of humor.
yeah, it's one of the questions.
So there's a lot of times on the evaluations, I would leave it blank. To me, it's a worthless question. How, somebody can be really a butthead as an executive, but do a darn good job running a school. So, how well their sense of humor is. So anyway, Mr. Hutchinson did ask me to take the lead. I dropped the ball. Now, doesn't mean I didn't have discussions. Matter of fact, I had discussions with a fellow board member, and number one, at the time, we were probably working blind, and we could not find a framework, honestly, that me as an accountant could understand. Well, there is an Ohio Department of Education evaluation system, but honestly, Fran, when I read it, my eyes start to cross because and I deal with IRS tax law, but this stuff, my eyes just cross. And so that's partly why I'm going to say we dropped the ball, and that's what happened. So yes, we do have a very antiquated evaluation system. Does it have any meaning? No, but we do need to work on it.
I don't think it would be that hard. You would say, okay, you're evaluated on grade, you're evaluated on attendance, you're evaluated on this, you're evaluated on how you get along with the other schools. I mean, there's just a checklist. It shouldn't take a rocket science to come up with a checklist. Go to legal counsel, God forbid, and say, hey, is this legal? But not just say, does she go out and meet with the farmers every Tuesday night? It's not that. It's things she does at school, how she communicates, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying. It's not that. It's how she communicates with the community as a general, how she communicates with other people, a checklist, go down that and say, okay, this is a 5, this is an 8, this is a 3, rather than say, you got an antiquated system and it doesn't want to change it. I don't know why Or maybe you haven't thought about it?
No, it's been
No,
a
we
thought,
did.
Fran. I've actually had this discussion with multiple people over the past 2 years, and it's been one of those things like it is insufficient, and we need to. It is on our plate. It is on our plate.
And there again, if you're doing that antiquated with Mrs. Douglas, and all of a sudden, in midstream, you change it. I understand that.
Right.
Because that makes it rough on her, because she says, I've been doing it this way, now I gotta do it. We'll do it. But if you're gonna go with the new superintendent, that is the time where you
Yes.
sit down, get together.
Full on.
and say, this is the way we're gonna judge you.
That conversation has already happened. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep me informed if it's changed, I don't care what it is, but just keep me.
The whole public will know. It would have to be adopted by policy.
Okay. My name is Kim Callie, and Blake, since you've just admitted you're on the school's insurance policy, just want to read you something from the Ohio Attorney General's office. It says, "The Ohio Ethics Commission Advisory Opinion 92-017 says that the Ohio Revised Code 102.03 prohibits a member of the City School Board District of Education who is covered by the health insurance for which his spouse receives as an employee in the same school district pursuant to a collective bargaining agreement from voting, discussing, deliberating, recommending, or otherwise using his authority or influence as a board member to secure ratification of the collective bargaining agreement." So you have violated that. And other people, other board members have had to resign for that. So if you do not resign, we will go to court and force you to resign because of that. You don't know what you're doing as a president. You need to know this stuff.
I guess it wouldn't be right if I didn't speak. And as I've said before, I've been involved in the school district since we started this school district in 1966. And I see this community splitting apart. And I hate to see that because I think we have a great community here. I don't know what this farmer thing is because I'm a farmer. I milked cows before I came to school and taught, and then went back home and milked cows. So I don't know what this farmer deal is. I don't like it, but I don't know what it is. Almost every single board meeting, you've gone into executive session. I don't know what on, but you've gone into executive session. If you meet as 5 members to do a reevaluation or to make your evaluation better, that's considered a board meeting. You can't meet as 5 members. So I don't know what you've been doing all these times. I mean, some nights we've sat here over 2 hours before you come out of executive session. Why weren't you doing an evaluation, coming up with a new type of evaluation? I just hate to see what's happening in the school district. I've been here too long. I've lived now in the school district for 47 years. I wasn't living in this district. I was right down the highway when I first started here. And I just hate to see it torn apart. And that's exactly what's happening right now. It's being torn apart. You need, if you want a new evaluation, you need to get a new evaluation. But that's something you've got to start working on right now before you have even get a new superintendent in here. That's something, and you're going to have to do it during board meetings. That's the only way 5 of you can get together. That's something to think about.
Thank you.
I'm Fred Davis, as you 5 probably know. I've tried to stay out of this fray, although my hearts won't let me. I spent 40 years here as a board member. When I came on this board, I replaced Barry West. He didn't run again. We were coming right out of a strike. It took 13 years to heal those wounds. The reason being, till those kids got out of school, we never got it. The strike was number one. I've talked to you people, and you know it. You cannot run for the board on an agenda. And don't deny you didn't come with an agenda. It's right on tape. When you run for an agenda, you only see through one set of eyes. Whether you're being swayed by family members or old wounds, I don't know. But you're tearing this district up every bit as much as that strike did. A lot of the people in this room worked their tails off for kids from the first grade on up. A lot of it was done in athletic fields. Bob, you remember what we went through. We spent years building this community. With 2 years on the board by 2 of the members in 4 years, you're trying to tell me you're going to evaluate a person that's been in education for 32 years, 12 in administration. We've never gotten rid of a superintendent the whole time Alexander's existed. We've always had a man. This is the first woman we've ever had as superintendent. She has brought things to this district, and I'm not putting any man down, but she's brought a sensitivity and a care about kids, especially with special needs, that I never saw before. And I tried to say, before we talked about getting rid of Mrs. Douglas, if you want to do it in a professional way, and you're convinced it's the right thing to do, you would have given her a 3-year contract so she could retire, and then you were free to name a new superintendent. And she would agree to that. But no, you didn't do it. So now your decision is going to be, are you going to rip this district apart? You won't get reelected, so the next board members are going to have to try to piece it together for the next 13 years. Now, you know I speak from my heart and I tell you the truth. And you can't snap at me for clicking my pen anymore. Think about it.
Hello, my name is Dominic Robinette, and I'm a sophomore here at Alexander. I have a serious question. It needs to be answered. You guys have no problem with spending almost $2 million to remove Lindy from office, but yet you guys were not willing to pay for new helmets and pads that have been bought from back in 2012. I'm just very confused about why you guys have no problem with spending $2 million to move her, but not care for her own safety.
What was your name? I'm sorry.
Dominic Robinette.
Dominic.
Yeah.
It's not $2 million. First of all, no.
400,000.
No, it's about
3 or
384,000 is
But-
rough
yeah.
estimate.
You're
And
good.
it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I just want to make sure that there's a lot of numbers and it's okay. Step up, you're okay. Okay.
He's still learning.
Yeah, and it's brave of you to step up. I just want to make sure that you have all the information that you know, okay? And so the options were to either put her in the classroom. That would have been roughly about $20,000 less a year for that 3-year term. But that teacher position would have to be then renewed it would be then put in the union and renewed for every year after that. So after year 4 alone, this position pays for itself. It's the cheaper option. Does that make sense? So if do you understand? I'm just trying to give you the number. So if it was a teacher position, it would be about $20 or $20,000 cheaper a year. So over the 3 years, that's $60,000, right? So 20,000, 20,000, and 20,000. That would be $60,000 is what this is more expensive by.
You're getting into the weeds.
I'm trying. He asked the question, so I'm
Okay.
trying.
And as far as the pads,
I know.
we don't know about that. We
I
have to
would
look
love.
into that.
I want him to understand. I'm not saying it to you guys. I'm saying I want him to understand the numbers. And so what you have is, so by that fourth year, okay? By that fourth year, we don't have this cost at all. Where the other costs, you have that teacher position in itself that you have to pay. And so there's the difference of where that logic is coming from. As far as the football helmets, I have no idea in 2012 what you're addressing.
That's when they were purchased. They're
Right.
working with outdated info, and they don't have any equipment.
It's never been brought to us, ever.
That's why we're bringing it up now.
I get it, but that's never been, it's not a board decision not to purchase new helmets.
I'm just trying to,
I understand.
process.
I understand,
why.
and I absolutely understand. That's why I'm trying to make sure that you understand your question was 2 million this way. It's not 2 million that way. It's over 3 years, it's about $384,000. And so but it's that versus this option. And after year 4, it is the cheaper option. And so that's where that decision got made. But as far as the helmets go, that has never been brought to us and never turned down to us. And so that would be my reply to that. I never got asked.
Hello, my name is Debbie Hutchinson, and I just wanted to make a few comments. You were talking about the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten's grades or whatever dropping down. I want to say thank you to Mrs. Douglas for all the incredible work that she and the teachers have done through an unprecedented event of the pandemic. You know, she may not have had time to address your issues with your little unfair evaluation because she was so busy trying to keep these kids educated for the last 2 years in an unbelievable way. I'm so proud of her. I can't believe that you would even think about getting rid of her. But I think at the very least, you owe her the opportunity to have a fair evaluation and goals set and an opportunity to meet those in a fair way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Karen Bright, and I am a longtime resident of the district. I have 3 children who have graduated from Alexander and a mother who retired from Alexander as a long-term teacher. So I've been involved with a number of activities and organizations throughout this school district over the last 30 years, probably. I have some questions, and the previous speaker started this topic with the idea of goals. And that's what I would like to address. I would like some answers on how the goals have been set. And the first thing I would like to share is I would assume it's an email from Mr. Collins asking Lindy for a self-assessment for the evaluation. And if she was open to go ahead and send that to the entire board, I've got that printed off. I will not read the entire thing. Clearly, he was asking for this on his own. We get to November of 2021, when Mrs. Douglas requested some goals to be set. And she received the following response by email from Mr. Reagan. Lindy, you requested that I supply you with 2 goals in writing and suggested bringing Jay into the conversation. I cannot, nor with the aid of Jay, ethically act as the board by providing goals, and thus providing 2 goals at this time is not feasible. The deficiencies the board has seen in your performance was provided to you in writing via evaluations in December, a meeting with Jay in January, discussed in a meeting with you, Lucy, and myself in April, and at the September board meeting in executive session, and in length following that meeting. Signed, Blake. My question to you is, if you could ask Mr. Collins for a self-assessment on your own, then why is it unethical for her to come to you and ask you for goals? You said it's clearly unethical. If it's unethical for her to approach you, What is the board's process for setting goals for the superintendent of this district? How does that look? Because I serve on a board, and whenever we have something that comes up along these lines, the line of communication is you go to the board president, who then takes charge of going through the rest of the board. So what is your process on setting goals?
If we were to set goals, we would set it as a board.
Okay? And
And
how does that work? How are those goals set?
That would be in an executive session that we have that discussion and decide if we are going to, as a board, set goals.
Okay, I got it. So my next question is, did you in fact set goals?
No.
My next question is, why would you not have set goals for somebody that you are evaluating? How do you have a fair assessment of somebody's work performance if they do not have goals and objectives they are to achieve? How do you fairly evaluate them?
What was the date of that email you said?
From you?
Yeah, no, the date of the email.
It says it was received on 11/5/2021.
Do you notice the date?
I'm sorry?
Do you notice the importance of that date? It's a question to you. Do you know notice the importance of the date?
Right after the election.
Do you have an idea of why that was asked?
It doesn't really matter why it was
Okay.
asked. My
Thank you.
question to you is, why have you not set goals for this woman?
Because when I took presidency, which was after the evaluation, my only evaluation as president was this past year.
Okay?
And so at that time, she was notified that there was not going to be a renewal at this, couldn't be support of renewal.
Okay.
That was my presidency.
My next question for you, at the last board meeting, you were addressed by a member of another school board who directly asked you about plans. And she asked you the direct question, did you make a plan saying these are your weaknesses, you have X amount of days for a reevaluation? Your response, sir, was yes.
Yes, we did make a plan.
Then, is that a goal?
No.
Well, what
That is
is
a
a goal
plan.
then? How do you evaluate somebody fairly if they have no goals? You cannot set up an evaluation system where you tell somebody you're not doing your job when they have no goals and they have no objectives that they are to reach. So how can you fairly say you are assessing her performance? That is my question to you. How can you say that? Because to me, when you say you have a plan to me, in the years that I have been in business and done numerous, and I mean numerous evaluations of numerous employees, I consider a plan to be goals that I am giving to my employees that I expect them to reach. That is what they are being evaluated on. So you're saying that plan is not goals. So you're saying that you were not being dishonest when you said you had a plan, but you were not setting goals.
Correct.
Why do you not set goals? Why do you not set goals? How do you evaluate? Answer that question. How do you evaluate an employee if you have no goals for them to reach?
Are you done? Because I'd like to respond.
Please,
Ladies and
please,
gentlemen,
please.
I can handle it. I got it. My son's here, he'll tell you I can handle it. Let her say her piece, and then I've got a couple other things that I would like to address.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sally. A lot of people are talking about making the assumption that because the board has not sat down and said, here's the 3 things we need you to work on, that it's not legitimate. And I disagree with that assumption. We are, just from what I've done in the past 2 years, I've been very clear in my writing and in asking for things what I wanted, and I gave my evaluation of whether that was done. on the evaluation tool. And the tool was, at least because everyone used the same tool and it was the same over time, you can look at patterns. It's not rocket science for her to approach the ones who she might be having a hard time with and say, what can I do better? And I'm pretty sure that there would be some consistent things that we as individuals would have to work on. We could not agree with them as a whole board, and nor was it ever, I don't want to get into executive session stuff, but when we had a hard time agreeing on things as a board, so where it was left was we do the individual numbers, we give our individual input, and we make our vote. All along, there was 2 years with me to talk with me about what could be done better. Yes, yes. And believe me, I picked and chose what I thought what questions I had and what I didn't do. It's a lot of, I don't know how to answer that question. What?
That, that is not a function of the board. That is not a function of the
It is
board.
a function of the board as the wait a minute. As a supervisory board of the superintendent, you do her evaluations, you determine whether or not the superintendent is offered a contract or a renewal on a contract, therefore you are her supervisors. Therefore, you are obligated to provide goals for her to achieve. How can she know whether or not she's doing what you want her to do if you do not give her goals? And they can't just be goals that you talk about. They need to be written goals that that she can look at, you can discuss, because otherwise it's interpretation, it's a moving target, and she cannot do the job that she is expected to do if she doesn't know. How many of you have goals in your evaluations? How many of you have things that you have to meet? Or in the case of Jay, do your employees have goals that they're expected to reach? Are they expected to do certain things? I know your wife. I know she has very definite ideas on what people are supposed to be doing. I always had goals. I couldn't be evaluated simply on, well, I don't like the job you're doing. That cannot be how you evaluate somebody.
And we did not do that.
It is not fair.
We didn't do that.
Then where are the goals? What are your expectations? And why are they not written?
We are a group. We had a hard time coming up with things that we agreed on. The only thing we could agree on, unless we did straight majority rule, the only thing we agreed on were the 3 things that we did on the evaluation a year ago. Well, we were trying to operate under consensus for the past 2 years, but there wasn't consensus.
Mr. Collins, do you have something to say?
It's
you
still
keep looking at me like, okay.
the way this is. Go ahead.
I would like to say something. You've asked the question multiple times, how can you effectively evaluate somebody without goals? You're pointing to a deficiency in the process. And I won't use this as an excuse, but there have never been goals. It's never been set. The only thing that I can offer in how I have approached it, I won't speak for anybody else, but the way I have approached it is I've used the tool, and yes, it is old. I was one of the ones that didn't like it as well. I've measured that and figured out what parts of that map directly to the job description for the superintendent and evaluated a performance against the items that are in the superintendent's job description. That's the only way that I've been able to figure out how to give a fair or reasonable evaluation.
So your evaluation process and your evaluation documentation is based pretty much on subjective decisions and subjective information, because there is really nothing in that evaluation that is based on any measurable metrics that I can see. I'm sorry, but one of your evaluating questions is, does the superintendent have a good sense of humor?
Yes, that's horrible.
Seriously?
And
All I
as,
can say is, from what I have seen, she must, because she's put up with a whole hell of a lot. She must have a really good sense of humor to be sitting here and taking what she has taken. This is crazy. And I don't know where you got that document. I don't know where that came from. But it is not effective. And now you're making decisions that are going to impact children, this district, this community. You are destroying this community. I mean, you're at the coffee shop, you're in town, Facebook, everywhere. You, on a flawed system, and you're evaluating using that flawed system?
I am not.
I
am evaluating based on the job description. And all I'm doing is trying to map the job description to wherever it fits on that evaluation, and specifically saying, this is what I'm grading on.
Then you should be able to sit down and take that job description, and you should be able to turn that into goals.
Agreed.
And you haven't.
Agreed.
And what I'm hearing from you is finally you're admitting you're wrong on this. This is not the way it should be done. I'm hearing from Mr. Reagan, and I'm hearing from you as well, that, this is just the way it is, and we talk, and that's not how we evaluate people. This is somebody's professional career. Would you like to be evaluated on, well, we'll look it over and see, and we can't come to a consensus? You are wrong in this. You have made such bad decisions, and you're not being honest with the community. And that truly, truly troubles me. It really troubles me. The next person is going to have the same system. It's going to have the exact same system. So what happens if you decide you don't like them for whatever reason? Is that how you're going to handle it? You need a system, and you should have had it. And you as a board are obligated. You have responsibilities to the organization you represent, legal responsibilities, and you're not meeting them. You're not meeting them whatsoever, and that is terrible. It's terrible to put this community through. And I have one more comment. Mrs., is it Udis? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yidis, like
Yidis?
Adidas. Yidis, like Adidas.
I'd like to thank you for the response to my email that I sent to you. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't get a response. But let me tell you, on behalf of the farmers in the room, we don't keep our mouths shut. That's not what farmers do. And quite frankly, you haven't heard the end from the farmers in this community, because they make up a bulk of the people that will be voting the next time you put a levy on, the next time you run for office. You need to seriously reconsider what you've done. Final point, the focus groups. How were people invited to those? The community members, how were they invited? How are we supposed to know about those?
Yeah.
No, I want them to answer. How are we to be notified of that?
I believe it's the same way that we let the community know of anything, which is Facebook. I think there was a Remind app that went out. It's the standard ways that the school communicates in general with the community.
What was the second part you said? I'm sorry?
What?
The second part of what you said Facebook and something else?
The Remind app, which was sent out once 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead. We did the same, I believe we did the same process that we generally do, and something on the website.
Okay.
I know. You had to be on the Remind app to get it. There's.
Well, how do you know that you're on the how do you get on the Remind app? And
you're trying to say
if you really wanted the community input, trust me, you could have found who we were, and you could have reached out to us. I guarantee you, the FFA alumni, the band, the PTO, the Futures Foundation, every one of them. And you know how you could have done that really easily? You could have asked Lindy Douglas, because she knows who's in these organizations. She knows because she has relationships with all these people that she has worked hard to build so that we can be successful. You did it in a very untransparent way. You didn't want our input. And your survey, I don't know who came up with your survey. I have a marketing degree. The survey that you used, the 3 questions, as an undergraduate marketing student, I would have been flunked if I had put that out in a research project. They would have given me an F for that. It's all open-ended questions. There's no way you're getting that data back anytime soon. So what are you using it for? There's no way. It's not measurable data. It's going to have to be culled through individually, each one of those and each one of those focus groups. It was atrocious, the whole thing. So you just add to the impression that you're giving that you don't care what the community thinks. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. This is personal for the 3 of you. I know it is. And everybody else in this room knows it's personal for the 3 of you. And you and I talked, and something you told me, I won't say right now, but I'm going to before it's over and done with, what you told me at the last meeting. And I think it's terrible that you have not lived up to what you consider to be your ethical obligation, sir.
Fran, do you mind stepping to the mic just so the people, sorry. I didn't see you back there, I'm sorry.
My name's Francis Toulouse, and I've been in this area for 30, 40 years. I know what Mrs. Douglas is going through. I worked at the coal mines. I had a boss that was in charge of underground. I had a boss that was in charge of maintenance. I had a boss that was in charge of superintendent, or the surface. I had a boss that was in charge of the prep plant. And I had a boss that was accounting. I had 5 bosses. Now, if you think of those 5 bosses, they've all got different agendas. You can't please all of them. So when you went to this one guy, I had a 4 out of 5 chance of making people mad. Because if I picked this one person, the other 4 would say, hey, my stuff's more important. And it's rough to do. I did that for 30 years. Suffered through 1 heart attack. So I know what she's going through. You guys should be ashamed.
My name is Jarrett Bright. I graduated from Alexander in 2008. There's only one person on the board that I know. My first question is, and it was brought to my attention from somebody in the audience a little bit ago, that at the end of the 3-year contract term that you've offered to her, she's agreed to give up her tenure as part of this contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct. So I guess my next question would be, my next point would be to that is you've admitted that you have no goals written down, no quantifiable goals for her, or for another superintendent that comes in. It doesn't really matter who it is. How many of the board members are self-employed or supervise employees underneath them? So when you evaluate the employees that are under you, everybody is evaluated based on a set group of goals, correct?
That's correct, at least in my evaluations of my professional life. I set goals and I measure them against their job description. That's correct.
But yet you're sitting up here as a board saying that you can't come up with a group of goals to evaluate a person that, from everything I've seen, has done exemplary things for the district in the last 8 years. And you chose to not offer a renewal based on, from what I've seen and heard, there's nothing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I've been a business owner. I've lived in the district, aside from about 6 years, my entire life. When when I sit down at the end of every year and try to figure out where I want to be for the next year, it's written down. I say, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be. Why can't you give somebody that is a public employee as a public board the same respect, courtesy, privilege? I'm not really sure what the right word is. Why, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I know some of you are newer to the board, and that doesn't really matter, but you chose to non-renew and offer her this new position, which is fantastic. Whatever you want to do is fine. Obviously, we can't stop you. But if she's agreed to give up her tenure at the end of this contract, or agreed to give up her tenure as part of this contract, why not come up with your goals, put them on paper, put them in front of her, and offer her the superintendent's position back, since apparently you can't now renew her. Offer her the superintendent's position back with those goals on paper, with the same caveat that she gives up her tenure at the end of the 3 years. If she's done a fantastic job, you're out nothing. And you've got, what, $375,000 in ESSER funds you haven't thrown away?
Yeah, you're right.
I guess none of it makes any sense to me, and that's probably because it, as near as we can all tell, it is personal. I guess I'll disagree with almost everybody that's spoken and say, I don't think you've divided the district at all. Sounds to me like you've unified us. I haven't heard one person that's in support of what 3 of the 5 board members have done. I don't know how many people have spoken tonight, but it's got to be a dozen or very close to it that are all in support of it. So why not offer her a 3-year contract as superintendent, save a lot of money searching and finding a new one, bringing them in, with or without goals? I mean, use the same thing in the superintendent contract and say, at the end of the 3 years, you give up your tenure. We'll try to have goals for you. Well, I don't think she should, because she's done nothing that I've seen to deserve that. But regardless, that's it. So,
Okay. Are you done? Because I'd like to respond to a
Yeah,
couple.
go ahead.
Okay. And I'll talk into the mic, Sally. A few things. The voting this past elections, in the voting this past election cycle, Jay took tops, and he had 300 more votes than Fred, than Josh. If 150 people would have voted differently, Fred would be sitting here and Josh wouldn't. When I look at the numbers, and it was pretty clear that the key thing in the last voting was the renewal of the superintendent's contract. And a lot of people, he has been pretty clear, then that may be the case, but that's how the voting came out. That is a possibility in the future. Is this on? I don't even know if it's on. That's a possibility in the future. But when I look at the voting this past time, that's what I look at. On two things. Yeah. No, I'm saying that I didn't explain the 300 people right. There was a 300 people voting difference between Jay and and Fred. If basically if 150 people of the 300 would have voted for Fred, Josh wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. I think around 150. And so the second thing that I made my decision on, in terms of the voting, interpreting the voting, for however you see it, was what I've seen in the past 2 years from the inside. No, I just said the other thing of what I'm voting on is what I saw.
But hold on.
It's two things.
But that was the first thing you said.
Yeah, and the second thing was the evaluations.
So the outcome of the election, which this past election cycle, which you were not elected in,
Correct.
was the first thing that you brought up in voting for non-renewal of the superintendent's contract. Did I hear that correctly?
Because I've already spoken about evaluations. They're both there in my head. The third was the crucial one. Good point. Josh still got in. So I just wanted to clarify that it was both my evaluation of her these past 2 years, as well as looking at the voting, is what I make my decision on.
I believe there's a question over that.
And there's someone there waiting to talk behind you. She did. That's not true. To manage the school.
What's that? Right, but we're evaluated by the public. We're evaluated by the public, our constituents.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's what I'm saying. No. Does it bother me that I'm evaluated by the public? No, that's what I signed up. In your opinion, yes. In your opinion, the fact that I'm failing you, in your opinion, yeah, that bothers me. It means I haven't done a good enough job to convince you. That's all right, and that's okay. What goals? That's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, what goals are you referring to?
We have a job description. Yeah.
My duties and my role? Yes, I'm aware of my duties and my role, but my goals? No. Correct.
but the interests of the organization that you serve.
Correct.
Any of you are up there because you have a personal issue, and I believe that to be true, that is why several of you ran, when you clearly said you would not renew her, you weren't even on the, we cannot say that. Now, you made up your mind before you ever came on. That should disqualify you to serve on this board because you went on the board without having any
So that is an obligation, not a goal. That's what I'm deferring between. That's an obligation, not a goal. And that's where I'm answering your question. That's an obligation. In my opinion, that's an obligation. That's not a goal.
I think if people want to speak, they should come over here and stand in line. If you want to speak, come over here and stand in the line. My back's bothering me.
That's fine.
So, one more question. Why has that not even been brought up, discussed, considered? Offering her a 3-year contract with, sit down as a board, come up with quantifiable goals, measurable goals, offer her a 3-year position as superintendent. Whether it's a renewal, apparently you say you can't do that. That's
At this
trivial.
point.
At this point, it's trivial. It doesn't matter. Offer her a new position. Put in it with that caveat that she gives up her tenure. If you're happy with her year to year after those 3 years, she's met all of the goals, keep her. Why get rid of her? Why spend the money to find another one? It doesn't make sense. Have you all seen the price of diesel fuel? I burn $3,000 a week. I can't imagine the buses burn much less. So you just keep throwing money away, and it doesn't make sense to me. Why hasn't that been, or has it been discussed, considered?
So can I answer it just real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I made the motion that we do that with objective measurable goals. The concern came that Mr. Reagan brought up that we're not sure we can legally even do that, so we want to talk to our attorney to figure out if we can legally do that.
Right.
Right, that motion was made this evening, though, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Why, is that the first time it's been brought up? Is that the first time it's been discussed?
That's the first time I brought it up. I mean, I'm new on the board. I don't know if it's been discussed before I've been here. I've been here for, this is my 3rd board meeting. And yeah, it takes time.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But it took time for me to think about this, talk to the folks in the community and try to come up with something that would best serve our school district.
At the end of the day, everybody should be here for the kids. My girlfriend has a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. I have a 4-year-old that lives 3 hours from here, and a 1-year-old and a 9-month-old. Well, 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. We live here in the Alexander School District. Her oldest started school this school year. And I pushed and pushed and pushed because I wanted him to come to Alexander, because I had a great experience here. You've got a beautiful facility. It's the best facility in the entire freaking county. And she went to Athens, she pushed for Athens, and at the end of the day, I don't have a say. I was really against sending him to Athens. But based on the way the last few months have gone, since the new board has taken effect, I really don't think she made the wrong decision.
Thank you.
My name is Bert Christian. I'm pre-Alexander, last class of Albany in 1966. I want to clarify a couple of things just to make sure I understand. This evaluation that did not exist for your decision to not renew Mrs. Douglas' contract is based on personal reasons for you first 3 people here? Is that correct?
I would disagree with that, but I don't think people would agree.
Okay. Secondly, there was just a question to ask about the giving up your tender after this contract. Mrs. Douglas, did you agree to give up tenure after this contract? Because I thought you shook your head no when that question was asked.
Yes, I have tenure in the district, whether I sit in the superintendent's seat or I sit in another seat. Through the transition agreement that was agreed upon, that transition agreement was written that I would have a 3-year contract and then I will retire, as it is written.
It didn't specifically say that you'd give up tenure, though, if you decided not to. The condition of the contract was that you retire at the end of that 3 years?
I would have to go back and revisit it, I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Another clarification on this division in the community, it's about 99.9 to 0.1. So it's not, we're pretty united. So I want to ask one question, I'm done. I'll ask it each one of you, and I'll start down at that end and go. When you go to executive session, will you realize that you've made a terrible mistake in not renewing her contract, and you'll tonight reconsider what Aaron wants to propose tonight? Mr. Barnes, will you do that?
Yes, I seconded his motion, so I want to discuss it.
Mr. Ramsey, will you do that?
Yes.
Mr. Reagan, will you do that?
I will listen to council and see what we have our options available to. Your question was, will I realize I made a terrible mistake? No, but will I listen to options that are there?
Will you
Yes.
seriously consider an option to?
Well, I consider every option. Absolutely, I will consider an option.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
I, of course, will consider things. That's part of the job.
And I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Yidis.
Yidis, okay.
You would if it was Wisconsin, I guess.
Yeah.
I would consider it.
Okay, so you'll all three at least consider it. So that's
As
some
with
hope.
everything.
That's some hope. So, thank you.
I'm Mark Bell. I have been in this community for basically my whole life, minus 10 years in the United States Army. In my time in the Army, I was a non-commissioned officer. I was in charge of, a squad of soldiers. And I had to do monthly evaluations, monthly counselings. I had to sit down with my soldiers. I had to come up with short-term, long-term goals, what they were doing good, what they were doing bad. How often do you evaluate?
What?
Once a year?
Yeah, once a year,
Once a year, really. So
officially.
I think that's yeah.
That's their
So
policy. That's not
you evaluate,
we made the policy. That
we
is the
evaluate our
policy.
students, their quarterly report cards, right?
Well,
Every day, right?
Okay. So, and we evaluate them numerous times through tests and everything else. So you don't give her goals, quantifiable goals, and you evaluate her once a year on those goals. Seems like we've got a problem. I think the board should come together. I think there should be a motion passed on this, that the board should come together and come up with at least quarterly evaluation system, a quantifiable list of goals. And you guys should meet and then kind of compare notes, figure stuff out, rather than 5 different people giving her 5 different evaluations once a year. That way she's got some idea of what she's doing good, what she's doing bad, where we want to be. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Matt Bovin. I guess I want to kind of just see something here. I hate to throw Dr. Ramsey out here, but did you have goals when you ran to get on the board?
I had goals, yes. Do you mean once I'm on the board or as
Yes,
I'm
once you were on the board.
Sure, yeah. I mean, my goal is to make sure I put every decision I have, put the kids first, to make sure that I look after this school and make sure that I'm doing everything I can to support our teachers and staff, to make sure that I'm looking at our school
report cards to make sure we are meeting the needs of our students and are achieving, the goals that the district should be achieving. And I think sometimes it can get kind of confusing because for me and being new, I felt like we were meeting all those goals. When I look at the facilities that we have and how this community's supported this district, it's fantastic facilities here. When I look at the work our teachers are doing with our kids, I look at our report cards. Our teachers are doing a great job. Our staff keeping the facilities clean and looking nice. They're doing a great job. So yeah, those are the sort of things I've been looking at and trying to measure to see, do I need to make a change? Do I need to suggest a change? And as far as specific goals, I feel like the district is doing fantastic, and that's why I feel so passionately that we need to continue on the same path we are, because doing something else at this point is rolling the dice and hoping it works out. That's not a good plan.
And it only took 3 meetings, and look where he's at. And look where these guys are at. Endless. And Blake, you have contacted me 3 times, and you stopped me out here. I have nothing to say to you. Point, it's done.
My name is Brian Burke, and I live out in State Route 143. I want to thank you all because this is a terrible job. So thanks for stepping up. Now, I don't agree with all you, and I didn't agree with a lot of things Lindy did when she was first hired. But she proved me wrong in a lot of things, and other things I learned to accept. When she hired Brad, I did not like that. Sorry, Brad. But Brad, I think, was one of the best ADs we ever had. Now, I still probably won't invite Brad over for dinner. But I do appreciate it. And when my daughter coached 7th grade volleyball, he stood up. And excuse me if I get emotional. I had this big speech planned, but the wisdom in this room overrode everything I wrote. And regardless of your opinion of Ms. Douglas, I wanted to come up here as a taxpayer. And this whole deal of having to pay her salary, having to hire another superintendent is fiscally irresponsible. So I need help with English teachers, maybe even a biology teacher. But, and so I'm not going to take long, it's late, but I think you 3 need to reconsider, because while I think you are strong people, and I think you are good, and I expected you when you guys came in to be fiscally responsible for our taxpayers' dollars, and to be good stewards of those dollars. And my biggest fear in this district is to get a board that just spends money wildly. But after being here tonight and hearing your evaluation process, I don't see how you can even get rid of somebody with something like that. I think that is just terrible. And I think it's going to reflect poorly in the community for your sake. And I know we can vote you out, which if I was you, I would hope that would happen. I probably wouldn't even run. But I do respect you to stand up here in front of our crowd and listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Kane. I'm a graduate here quite a few years ago. My grandchildren all went here. They excelled very well. They were under Lindy, and I knew her family. In my job and my career, I evaluated a lot. I was with the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. and I got to evaluate a lot of people. And I got to evaluate you three when you came in tonight. Heads down, you didn't want to look at anybody. You knew you had some problems. You're walking into a hellhole. And this has been. I'm listening to this, and I am just absolutely ashamed of a school that I went to. And I call it the Ppp Factor. You know what that is? You're going to learn. That's piss poor performance. You're an educated man. You got a PhD. You've just ruined this whole school district. You got everybody up in arms. Why? Why are you doing this? I got on the SOS. I got to take a look at it. I couldn't believe what I was reading. What's SOS? Save our schools. You need to get educated. You need to get on there and take a look at it. There's some video. I think he probably does know about it. I think what you guys need to do in evaluations is sit down and you better talk to your legal counsel. I see malfeasance. You know what that is? Get a dictionary up, look it up. Have you committed that? Have you committed some other things that are ethic violations? I think so. Could they hire an attorney and go after you? I think so. So you better take a good hard look at this. I'm not here as a threat. I'm here to advise you. And oh, in my retirement, I'm a farmer. Just let you know that, Lucy. I couldn't believe that. And you are an educated person. You guys don't know what the farmer is. You need to go onto the SOS and learn that one. That's a great video. And my respect, sir, is to you. You and the gentleman next to you have shown common sense tonight. You have your heart with the kids. I see nothing but failure coming up. And you know what? When I did retire, I got Steve Dugan to call me, and he lives down there, has a place next to mine. And we went door to door to door promoting that levy to get it passed. And how did it pass? Just by a few votes. And you know what? I was back there in the bus garage in meetings. I saw teachers working, trying to make this school district go really good. Yeah. And you know what? I'm ashamed. Me personally, just me. I wanted to come here and see this for myself. I want you to look me in the eye. You look me in the eye, and you look me in the eye. Because you didn't do it when you came in. You need to go back, you need to talk to your attorney, and I think there needs to be some adjustments in the Ppp Factor. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jarrett Bright again. One more question, and the two on that end, you don't have to do anything. You've already done enough. The three on this end, my question for you three is, after doing this, what are you three going to do as individuals to help get the next levy passed for the kids? After what you've done with all of the resentment that's here, how are you going to help? What are you going to do?
So the only thing I can say is I'll do exactly what I did last time, whatever I'm asked to do. I went on to the radio 4 times. I went to every levy meeting in the bus garage. I did not go door to door, I'll admit that, but I talked to everybody that I could find. I'll support it in every way that I can because that's part of the job. Once we agree, once we make a decision that we're going forward with a levy, or once we make a decision that we're going forward with any of our decisions, the job of the board member is to get on board and support it in the best way possible. So that's exactly what I'll do. When the levy comes up again, and we know it will, I'll be there. And if I'm asked not to be there, fine, I respect that. It's actually quite simple.
Same, I would do what I did before, if asked or if people wanted me to. Go door to door, visit with people and give funds to get the advertising out.
I'd continue giving as much detail as I'm legally allowed to give. And I will talk to anybody that wants to talk. You can ask anybody in the community that has asked, given me a call. I have talked to them. I have reached out to people that have said this or that. As Mr. Bovine said, I've reached out to him 3 different times, and as I walked in here with my head up, I asked him if he wanted to talk, give me a call. I don't shy away from the decisions I make. People can disagree with me, and that's fine. That is okay. But I will live with the rationale that I have, and I will, whatever you want to say, I will continue to give my rationale and my reasoning to the best of my ability, and anybody that wants to talk about it, I'm happy to talk to them about it. My goal is to be as open as I legally can be. And that's what I will do time and time again in the best interest of these kids, this district, and this community. And that's what I've done from day one, and that's what I will continue to do.
Are you done? Because I wanted to say
Thank you.
something.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's new, so go ahead. It's different.
And what are you going to do when the levy doesn't pass? Because it sure doesn't sound like it will to me. I'm a taxpayer. I live here. My business is based in the school district. At this point, I'm not going to vote for it. I can't support what you've done.
Okay.
What are you going to do when it doesn't pass? Or have you accomplished your mission and you're just not going to run for the next term and kick the can down the line, and it'll be another board member's problem?
Again, for me, it's a pretty straightforward question. I'll do nothing different. Doesn't matter what seat I'm in, whether I'm here or I'm at home. I'll still be involved. I'll do exactly like I did last time when we failed the first, what felt like 411 times. I'll go back to the well and keep digging for this place. I grew up here too. I've dug for this place a whole lot. I'll continue to.
So in other words, they don't really care what resentment they create. They don't really care what disaster they come up with. Got it.
Steve Gooden, and I live over here on 681, and I'm going to tell you, you 3, if you campaign, don't ever step on my property, first thing. Second thing, Mr. Reagan, for you, it's been a while since I've been out of high school, and tell me how it's cheaper to go out here and hire a new superintendent and then put her in a $375,000 job for 3 years. I know I didn't do real good in math, but I thought better than that it's going to be cheaper in the long run for us. No,
so
please,
you asked the
because
question, so I want to give it to you.
Figures don't lie, but liars do figure. And every time
And
you
then-
open your mouth, you lie.
Okay.
And I don't want to hear anything
Then don't ask the
from
question.
I
You
don't-
ask the
no,
question of how does it, and the answer is.
It's not cheaper, Mr. Reagan.
I agree with you.
It's not cheap. And I'm sorry, I called you Mr. Reagan. You're so weak, you don't think you should be called Mr.
Hey, sir, please. Please.
This isn't necessary.
Thank you.
This isn't to the board. This is mainly to everybody out here.
Thank you, Sally.
I felt the same way about the levy when all this happened. I wasn't going to vote for it. But what we got to do, we got to think of these kids.
Yeah, that's right.
These kids need the teachers. These kids need everything. So when that levy does come up, we got to think about them. not 3 board members.
Thank you.
But still, we've got to think of these kids. I've been here when we didn't have much money. I want to make, Aaron, you need to know this. When I started here, the treasurer of the school district, his office was 2 cardboard boxes. When I started here, we had nothing. We didn't have ALEA. We didn't have insurance. We didn't have anything when I started here. We've come a long way. And Lucy, don't say Facebook to learn stuff. Because a lot of us don't use Facebook. You know, some of us older people around here, you know, I can't find half the stuff on Facebook anymore. So that's not my system of communication. I am the old timer. I still use the newspaper, even though it's not very good anymore either. But you know, we've got to think of the kids. No matter what happens, we've got to think of these kids.
Thank you.
I would like to share one of the challenges of being a board member is the amount of oversight that has been needed in the past couple years. I mean, of course, COVID caused a lot of that, trying to balance everything through that. And we got through it. And it did have an effect on the grades. That's a given. An example of the kind of oversight, and some people call it overstepping and not staying in our lane, and other people call it oversight. I call it oversight, was the 4 people who got approved bonuses today, okay? This past year, Blake and I meet with the superintendent a week before the board meetings and a week after the board meetings to try and plan for the questions ahead of time so that we're not asking questions during the board meetings. So we ask our questions ahead of time, we try and plan the agenda, then we have the board meetings, and then afterwards we'll meet and say, okay, next steps. At our planning meeting before this one, Lindy had on the agenda to give 2 bonuses to the people who were subs for the first part of the year and then were hired on full-time for the second part of the year. That's all. In that meeting, I remember asking, is there anyone else who could get it? What about the teachers? Later on this week, Josh and Blake also talked to her. Is there anyone else who could get it? And she looked into it, and we found those 4 people. That's on a small scale, the kind of oversight that has been needed for these 2 years. And I say small scale to the school, large scale to some people. That level of asking questions when in the culture of Alexander, when you ask a question, you're criticizing instead of trying to make things better before things go public. That kind of asking questions is definitely part of the job description, and it's necessary to make things as good as possible before we have these board meetings. And even then at these board meetings, it's, you know, we get more information and more ideas. So I just wanted to use that as an example of the difference that asking questions and the work that 3 of us up here regularly do by some people. So in this case, yes, there's 5, but I was using that as an example.
In your
No, I didn't say that, Brad.
24/7, contacts, answering questions nonstop. Probably would have saved the whole district if we left her alone under your job.
So that's the perfect example, Lucy, that you said you guys asked her. She found out who was this. Perfect example. You gave her a goal, she completed it. Seems pretty simple to me.
My point, okay.
That's okay. You guys asked her, did we miss anyone? You said You just gave her kudos.
Thank you.
Good job, Lucy.
Wait, we're okay.
Okay, it's
Nope.
okay. It's okay.
Please.
Is it executive session time?
I'm Raymond Dixon. I live in the district. I have two boys that go here. I
Raymond,
No,
do you
no,
want
no,
to
no.
talk?
I voted for these three and I support them. If anybody has a problem with that, we can talk afterwards.
Hey,
Guys,
okay, okay.
please, let's keep order. Let's keep order.
Okay,
Please, this,
hey,
all right. We are
Stop
well
it.
over 30 minutes. Thank you. We're well over 30 minutes.
Blake, I want to say something when you're done.
Go ahead.
There was one person, there was one person at the last meeting who spoke up, who tried to speak up. And people, stop. And many of you shut her down, and that's not cool. Would you stop it?
Mr.
I
President,
wanted to point out,
can I interject, please?
I'm not done.
Okay, sorry, Lucy.
I just would like it. I appreciate everyone's patience, even when someone is very opposite of you. And I appreciate especially Mr. Burke's kindness and those of you who have been kind, even though very different. That's it. Thank you, Jay.
Jay, your
What?
floor is yours.
Lucy, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 10 after 9. If anybody would like to speak, that's fine, but I need to use the restroom. So if we can forward, kind of bring us to a close. It is all about me, sorry, but my bladder is talking to me.
All right. We have I'll make the motion to enter executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against an employee or official. So moved.
Seconded.
Roll.
Mr. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mrs. Edis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
We are back in session. Let me get my notes. All right. Just as a quick statement, as we came out of executive session, given the length of that executive session, I hope that it's clearly obvious that we are considering all that everybody has said in the last 3 months, let alone 4 years, 5 years, whatever you want to say. We are clearly considering it. That being said, we are going to continue that conversation in the coming weeks as a board. And on that, the next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Does anybody have any prior obligations or conflicts? It says Wednesday, April 13th.
Yep, I'm good.
I'm,
I don't know of anything.
it's been
Still
tabled.
table. We'll pick it up.
Good?
I
And
don't
we're gonna
have
be
any
meeting in the
conflicts.
next few weeks.
I said that.
Okay.
We're going to be in the next coming weeks. Correct. Wait,
We're not stopping it.
The motion that was brought up of a 2-year renewal has been tabled, and it's going to continue to be in a conversation in the coming weeks. Sound good? Yeah.
At official meetings with us in executive session, where we go someplace and talk and listen and figure things out. So it won't be a big meeting like this. Will be, I believe so, yes. But it's technically, it's, yeah.
By law, yes.
So they are still entertaining the opportunity of a 2-year contract. They just need time to work out details and come to an agreement. So all special board meetings are posted. They will be on the website and usually on the radio. I know Tom Williams is really nice about putting that out there for us. So give the board some time to deliberate.
I didn't realize I had my hats on. Yes, yep. Yep, we were,
Just yes.
yes, yes. Good. So do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I'm a little late to the game, because I put myself in first. And I'm not here, but I do want to.
And you, ma'am, I'm totally with you. We're happy to talk later. We have a motion on the floor. And I'm happy to continue the conversation after the meeting, but we have a motion on the floor.
I'll email you.
All right, perfect.
I look forward to your.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So we have a motion for adjournment. Second. Roll.
Mr. Ramsey,
Yes.
Mrs. Udis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
and Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Thank you.